On a stormy night, Mr. White, his wife, and their son Herbert sit by the fire in their quiet home. The wind howls outside and the atmosphere is tense. A knock at the door interrupts their evening. Sergeant Major Morris, an old friend of Mr. White, enters. He carries a small, mysterious object, a shriveled monkey's paw. Over tea, Morris shares the story of the paw. It was cursed by a fakir to grant 3 wishes to 3 different owners. However, each wish comes with devastating consequences. Morris admits he has already used the paw and suffered because of it. He tries to burn it in the fire, but Mr. White retrieves it. Intrigued, despite Morris's warnings, he decides to keep it. After Morris leaves, the Whites joke about the paw. Skeptical but curious, Mr. White decides to test it. He holds the paw and wishes for £200 to clear their debts. The paw moves in his hand, startling him. Nothing else happens, so the family dismisses it as a silly superstition. The next morning, Herbert goes to work at the factory. Later, a company representative visits their home. He delivers shocking news. Herbert has died in a tragic accident involving machinery. The company offers £200 as compensation. Mr. and Mrs. White are devastated. Their wish has come true, but at a terrible cost. Days turn into weeks, and the grief consumes Mrs. White. One night she remembers the paw. Desperate, she begs Mr. White to wish their son back to life. Reluctantly, he holds the paw and makes the wish. The house grows eerily silent. Hours pass, and nothing happens. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door. Mrs. White rushes to open it, but Mr. White stops her, horrified. He fears what their wish has brought back. The knocking grows louder and more insistent. Mrs. White struggles to unlock the door, but Mr. White grabs the paw and uses his final wish. The knocking stops. When Mrs. White finally opens the door, the street outside is empty. There is no sign of Herbert. The couple is left in silence, haunted by the choices they made.